Hey everybody. Today we have a really simple card wallet project. I realized a couple things. I realized we haven't really done a card wallet in a while, and also I haven't really been feeling that well lately, so when I don't feel well, one of my favorite things to do is to just make really simple projects in the shop, and this is one of my favorite projects to make. So there's going to be a pattern on the website, a couple bucks if you want to make along. Otherwise we'll get this cut out and get into making it. So like the last couple projects we've made, this pattern's really nice because you don't need a whole ton of leather. I'm going to use, this is some Herman Oak Saddle Tan, London Tan I think it's called, that we've had split down to around 3.5 ounces. I'm just going to cut off a little chunk here. Of course you can trace this onto your roll so you make sure you have exactly what you need, but I'm just going to cut off a chunk for the video. And I'm going to trace one of the body and two of these supporting panels. Now, once we have everything cut out, if you'd like, you can just put it all together. You can glue these two pieces together, and then you fold over this body piece, and there will be a dotted line on the pattern if that helps you at the center point. We glue this to here, and we sew it all up. What I like to do first is a little bit of skiving to make it feel a little more refined. It is a simple piece, but we can make it feel a little fancy. Now, where I'm going to do this, and I'm going to use some calipers, I'm going to skive down the bottoms of these pieces because it's going to be inside of our main body piece here. That'll remove a little bulk, and then I'm also going to skive on the sides of our main body piece. So what I like to do is I like to use some calipers that are set to the width that I would like to skive at. I'm going to go down these two sides here, and then I'm going to go down one side of both of my, I guess, inside pieces you could call them. And now we're just going to skive those. Now we're ready to glue. I forgot to say, make sure that you burnish the tops of the body pocket before we glue everything together, because you're not going to be able to reach them once they are glued. First thing we're going to glue are our two inner body pieces, and we're just going to glue down the sides. When we stick them together, remember you want the skived sides on the same side if you do skive. This is the top of our inside pocket. This is the bottom. Now, if you want this pocket to fit cards, you can either leave it as it is, or you can put a card down, mark where it lands, and stitch across here so that they don't go all the way down. I'm leaving this open because I want to use this for bills. You can see this is sized perfectly for bills, so I'm going to leave it open. So next step is we need to figure out where we have to glue to put our body on. Now, there's no line in the pattern, because it's going to be different for everyone depending on the type and the thickness of leather that you use. So what I suggest is we fold our main body, our front body piece in half. We're going to slide this in here. Make sure they're lined up, and then just take an awl and make a very light mark on one side, like that. Then we're going to go down to our cutting board, and I like to use a cutting board that has a grid on it, and mine is almost exactly a 1/2 inch. And I'm going to carry that mark over to the other side. Well, if it'll stop slipping. So I'm going to put my ruler down, and I'm using just the grid here on my cutting board. And I'm going to make a very light line here as well. And then I can just transfer it to the other side. There we go. So you can do this glue up 1/2 at a time. I'm going to do the whole thing at once. Just get yourself something kind of tall that you can balance your centerpiece on while both sides are drying. And we're just going to glue up our sides where we scuffed up to our mark. And then I'm going to glue the sides that we skived on our front body piece, but I'm going to leave a little bit of a gap at the fold. The reason being is that our centerpiece isn't going to go all the way down to there, and so I don't want any like dry glue. I don't want you to be able to see that once the piece is put together. So I'm just leaving like a little, maybe half, quarter inch. Not much, but if you leave a little too much, it's not the end of the world. You can still stick it together and put it together just fine. You have to remember with this piece specifically, but with a lot of pieces, the glue is more or less like a second pair of hands holding everything together. It's not all the strength. That's what our stitching is for in this piece. So now we're just going to let this dry, and then we can stick the whole thing together. So once we have this all glued together, we're just going to even out the sides. I have a piece of sandpaper. You guys have seen me do this plenty of times. Now if you have like a power edge slicker from Weaver, we have one of those. It's really, really great, but I like to show you how to do it by hand. I'm just going to take a small piece of sandpaper. This is 220 grit. Put it down on my workbench, and then I'm going to be leveling off this edge. So we're just going to go back and forth like this. And at 220 grit, you're not going to have to do that much before your edge is nice and even. Then I'm going to flip it over and do the other side. So once we have that leveled off, I'm going to stitch it first before I do the final sanding and burnishing. And I'm just going to go from a little before. I'm going to get a couple stitches in after this pocket. You don't have to, you can stitch right up to here, but I glued all the way up, so I'm going to stitch pretty much all the way up. I'm going to go down, and then I'm going to stop right before. I don't want to put a stitch at the very bottom here because this center piece ends, and so if there's a stitch there, it just won't look great. So I'm going to end a little bit before that on both sides, and then I'm going to punch the holes, and we'll stitch this up. So before we burnish, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a little bit of this corner off, and that's just going to prevent, over time, if we leave this pointed like this, it's going to fray and not look great. So by just doing a little bit like this, and then taking our sandpaper and just rounding that edge slightly, that'll make it so that it ages really nice and doesn't get kind of ratty looking. And now all we have to do is bevel and burnish. And here we go. So this is just a nice simple piece to make with some scraps of leather. And you have one on each side. Put your cards in there, and then remember, if you don't stitch the bottom here, that is going to be your slot for folded bills. That's going to fit just perfect. Like that. And everything, you can fit a bunch of cards and cash in here. And so thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoy these more simple projects. Pattern's going to be on the website if you want to make along with us, and we'll see you in the next one.